Good afternoon. Before we get started, I want to just go over the basic facts of the case. And there's a few people that I personally want to thank. That's important to me because I want the public to know that the APD had a lot of help from our federal partners, and they were individuals who were very instrumental in helping us to close this case. I also want to thank my command staff and some of the detectives that were involved in this, along with my command staff and some of the other people who I see here today. If I don't mention your name, know that we appreciate all that you've done. I can't name everybody, but I'll do my very best to identify the people who helped us with this most horrific crime. And before I get started, I just want to thank my deputy chief, Stan Branford. I just shared with Superintendent Buck and some of our federal partners that when this event happened, it just affected me in a way that a lot of cases have, and all of them are sad, but it was just something about it. It's hard to explain, but this violence really affected me, which should have been just a fantastic celebratory time for that family, just turned for the worse due to somebody else's recklessness. And as a policeman, I think every cop in this room understands or have an idea of how I feel. So thank you, Deputy Chief Branford, for all that you've done. I was sharing that some nights I couldn't sleep. I felt rage, and I live alone, so I would pick up the phone and call my Deputy Chief Branford, and he would listen to me. And I was hollering, and we got to do this, and we can't do that, and I can't face the public unless we solve this case. And I was hollering, and his response was, "Yes, sir," and we got you, Chief. So I just want to thank you, and I'll acknowledge some others in a few minutes. But basically, the Annapolis Police Department detectives have arrested 29-year-old Angelo Herrard of Annapolis and charged him with the homicide of Michelle Cummings of Houston, Texas, 57. Herrard was charged with first and second-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree murder, and second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, use of a firearm in a violent crime, being in possession of a loaded handgun, reckless endangerment. He is being held at the Jennifer Road Detention Center without bond. I also want to make the point that there were 2 other victims in this case, and I don't want the public to forget that. As horrific and as tragic as Michelle Cummings' murder was, there was also an attempt to murder 2 other citizens that night on Pleasant Street. Mr. Herrard was also charged with the attempted murder of those 2 individuals. My investigators identified Herrard as the primary suspect after reviewing video and photographic evidence from the crime scene. Using that evidence, investigators developed additional information that led to the charges that's filed today. On June 29, 2021, the victim, Michelle Cummings, was sitting on the patio area at an Annapolis hotel. She was not the intended target in the shooting. The shots were fired on Pleasant Street and traversed or traveled a distance, striking the victim. We promised, I gave my word as the chief of police, that we would do everything we could to arrest the person responsible for the tragic death of Ms. Cummings. That promise was kept today. I know that the arrest will not bring the family's beloved wife and mother back, but I hope this provides them with some justice. The Annapolis Police Department appreciates the support of our allied law enforcement agencies, local, state, and federal, including the NCIS, the FBI, and the ATF. They assisted with technical resources, they gave moral support, and they gave money to gain evidence that would lead to the arrest, apprehension, and conviction of the suspect. I believe that we have a booking photo of the suspect. Now, I'd like to take this time to say that I talked to Mr. Cummings this morning. I called him about 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. He and I had a brief conversation. I told him that we had had a person in custody and charged him with the murder of his wife. He paused when I told him the news, and he said, "Thank you, Chief. Thank you. My family thanks you." And I let him know that he still remains not only in my prayers, but the entire Annapolis Police Department. And I think it was safe to say that everybody in Annapolis who's on the right side of the law and justice and wants peace, I actually said to him that I think everybody in Annapolis, their thoughts and prayers are with you and your family during this most difficult time. I'd like to acknowledge a few people that are here today. Sean Buck, let me say it correctly, Superintendent Sean Buck from the United States Naval Academy. Mike McElhenney from the FBI, Shea Gibson from the FBI, Tony Crosby, ATF, and Brandy Waiters from NCIS. And Brandy, we had a conversation the other night, and she said, anything, Chief, that you need, even if we have to bring food to you, your investigators, anything you need, we're here to assist you, so thank you. I'd like to thank the APD officers, detectives, and command staff. I believe he's here. Acting Captain Mike McDonald, who led the investigation. He's another one that I had to, I was just direct hollering and saying, we got to get this case solved. And he was very gracious and took advice and took counsel and kept us up to date on everything that he and his detectives did. Also, Captain Justin Kleindes, thank you. His patrol forces were also instrumental in helping us resolve this case, so thank you, Captain Kleindes. Also, he's not here today. I think he had to take care of some other business, but Aaron Stein, a retired state police, he's one of my detectives. I want to thank him. And I'd like to thank the lead investigator, and it's Lawrence Delianibus. Did I say it right? I'd like to thank you. He's the lead investigator in this case. And I believe you also reached out to the family and in this case. So thank you for that, Detective Delianibus. Appreciate it. This was good work. I couldn't be more prouder than the Annapolis Police Department. I would pit them against any other investigative unit in the United States, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So if I haven't told you guys that, thank you. I appreciate that. Just hours and hours of reviewing video and interviews and everything that needed to be done so we can bring justice in this case. Just give you a little bit of background. Mr. Herard was apprehended on June 29th. He was identified as a person of interest after watching the videos. He was located at the intersection of Forest Drive and Tyler Avenue. He was arrested by our patrol uniform officers along with information from our detectives. He was arrested on an outstanding warrant issued by the Anne Arundel County Department of Detention Facilities on May 3rd and held without bond at the Jennifer Road Detention Center since the 30th. He had an ankle bracelet on, and he was on home detention. He cut the ankle bracelet off, and he was and absconded from his home and became a fugitive. When police had enough evidence, when my detectives garnered enough evidence in the Cummings case, the judge signed the warrant. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Brian Marsh and Ann Coatlitis from Anne Arundel County State's Attorney's Office. They were also very instrumental in helping us with this case. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge the Anne Arundel County State's Attorney's Office. Again, I'll wrap up by saying that he was charged with murder in the first degree, two counts of attempted murder in the first degree, involuntary manslaughter, second-degree murder, manslaughter, reckless endangerment, possession of a firearm, loaded firearm, use of handgun in a violent crime. And he's being held, again, without bond. I'd like to thank Mayor Buckley for all of his support. He's going to speak in a minute. I'd like to thank the City Council. Here with me today is Alderwoman Rhonda Pendell-Charles. She heads up the Public Safety Committee. I'd like to thank Dave Gerald. He's the city manager. He's standing next to her. And so I'll turn it over now to Mayor Buckley, and then I think at the end we'll entertain any questions that you may have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, everybody, for being here on this solemn occasion. Before I get started, it takes a lot of police work to get to the point we're at. It takes the great partnerships that we've developed federally and locally, but it also takes a community. And I want to thank the community because everybody wants their community to be safe. So, as you know, I'm Mayor Gavin Buckley. With the funeral for Mrs. Cummings coming up on Saturday, we're all thinking about her family during this difficult time. This was a senseless tragedy. It is my hope that the news of an arrest with Chief Jackson, which Chief Jackson has shared with Leonard Cummings earlier today, is some comfort. As we enter into this next phase of the case, I know we will continue to keep the family informed, keep their daughter Jordan and Naval Academy plebe Trey and our extended Navy family in our hearts. I want to recognize Chief Jackson's leadership in this case. On Tuesday morning, hours after the shooting, the chief, the deputy chief, Captain Mike McDonald, were in my office to offer me the latest updates. I could see at that time how committed they were to solving the case. I had complete confidence that they would find the shooter. Today's announcement is not a surprise because Annapolis has an outstanding police department made up of professionals who take public safety very seriously. I thank Deputy Chief Stan Bradford for the continual updating to me on the progress of the case. All of the officers and detectives who worked this have built a solid case. I am grateful for their service for our City of Annapolis residents. One thing that's abundantly clear is that while Annapolis is a safe city and this crime is an aberration to the trend line of violent crime, we have got away from more guns, and more guns. That mentality is not healthy for our society. Just 2 weeks ago, we dedicated the Guardians Memorial to mass shooting victims in Annapolis from 3 years ago. This shooting happened not only 13 hours from the time we dedicated that memorial to the 5 slain journalists of the Capital Gazette. Mass shooting victims intentionally targeted, a random individual shot and killed, bringing her son to college. These are horrific and senseless tragedies. In this same vein, we have to respond to everyday gun violence. Shots fired in neighborhoods that don't end tragically, but have the potential for similar bad outcomes. The damage this does to our community can't be calculated. The lives lost, the sorrow and suffering of survivors. It doesn't make any sense. I'm grateful for our partnerships with the FBI and the ATF. I know that our police department very recently worked across jurisdictions and was able to seize weapons and get some of them off the street. We need more of that, and we need the cooperation of the community to continue to make those police missions successful. Annapolis is a safe city with a first-rate police force. Today's charges are the culmination of a lot of long hours for our officers and detectives. The officers and the team who made the arrest need to be commended, not only for their police work, but for their footwork. Police identified this man as a person of interest in the Cummings incident. They were on the lookout for him, and when they identified him and gave chase, they took a significant risk to tackle this violent offender. They put themselves in harm's way to get the shooter, and I am grateful for their service. So I want to thank everybody that was involved in this. It was an amazing team effort, but this is a very sad day. I would like to turn over to Admiral Sean Buck for some comments. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Vice Admiral Sean Buck, the current superintendent of your U.S. Naval Academy here in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm here specifically to say thank you to the mayor, to the police chief, to his deputy chief, to our other law enforcement partners, the ATF, the FBI, and the NCIS. Thank you. Thank you for the due diligence to bring justice to bear for the Cummings family, who tragically and horrifically lost an extremely important member of their family. And we appreciate the support, the swift move to justice. And as we all have said, we hope it's a very, very small part of the contribution of the healing for the Cummings family. I'm also here to tell you and to reassure you that the Naval Academy family broadly are working every single hour to prepare our home, the Naval Academy, for the re-entry of Trey Cummings to be a proud member of the class of 2025 in the Brigade of Midshipmen. And when Trey is ready, after he has grieved and laid his mom to rest, and he has prepared himself, we will welcome him back with open arms, and he'll be a very proud member of the brigade and mature and evolve into being a commissioned officer in our United States Navy. Thank you.
Before we go any further, I want to acknowledge a couple other people. I see Reverend Jerry Colbert back there. Thank you, Reverend Colbert, for your prayers. He prayed with me. I see the Director of OEM, Kevin Simmons. Thank you for being here. I see Peter Grimm from the Police Foundation. Thank you, Peter, for all that you do. And I see Judy Buddensick. I see another elected official. I see Ellen Tierney. And I see my good friend, Mr. Carl Snowden from the Caucus of African American Leadership. And so I thank you, Alderwoman Tierney, for being here. And also thank you, Patty. just thank you. Appreciate you.
Good afternoon. My name is Shea Gibson, and I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Baltimore Field Office of the FBI. First and foremost, we want to offer our sincerest condolences to the family of Michelle Cummings. The past few weeks have undoubtedly been very devastating for the Cummings family, their friends, the Annapolis community, and the entire Navy family. 2 weeks ago, we stood together and promised the Cummings family we would do everything we could and assist the Annapolis Police Department in solving this senseless crime. Today, with the arrest of Angelo Harrod, we are one step closer to fulfilling that commitment and bringing justice to the community here in Annapolis, and more importantly, the Cummings family. In an effort to quickly support the Annapolis Police Department during the investigation, the FBI offered all investigative and forensic resources under our purview to identify those responsible for this tragedy. I'm sure the ATF and NCIS would agree to this. We are only as strong as our partnerships, and we are proud of the relationship we have with the Annapolis Police Department and their hard work and dedication and commitment to solving this case. While we know this won't undo the pain caused by this tragedy, we hope today's announcement brings a small amount of comfort to the Cummings family. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Gibson. Good afternoon. I am Tony Crosby, the Assistant Special Agent in Charge of the ATF Baltimore Field Division. Our thoughts throughout this entire investigation have remained with the family of Michelle Cummings. With every story that we hear about Ms. Cummings, we learn about the happiness she brought to everyone she met. We hope that you have found support within your family, friends, and the community to help as you grieve. ATF is committed to being no better partner, and that is exactly our focus with Annapolis Police Department. ATF special agents work side by side with APD detectives to provide assistance with ballistic forensics, crime gun intelligence, cell phone analysis, and more. We are grateful for the strong partnerships we have with all law enforcement agencies standing with us here today. It is our commitment to them and the community that ATF will always be here as a partner, ensuring every resource and all technology are available to investigators to identify the sources of violent crime. We will continue working this investigation with the Annapolis Police Department, along with our partners from the FBI, to ensure the family of Michelle Cummings see justice. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I have one. Chief, could you explain what the initial, whatever that confrontation was about that involved Mr. Harrod in the first place? What was that dispute about, and have you all recovered a weapon?
We haven't recovered a weapon. I don't want to talk about it this time because it's still an ongoing investigation as to what the motive was. I just can say that gunfire erupted as a result of an incident, and Ms. Cummings, the unintended victim, was struck.
Chief, you said Mr. Harrod was a fugitive, had removed his ankle monitor prior to the shooting death of Ms. Cummings. When did he do this? How long had he been a fugitive, and which agency was charged with tracking him down?
Yes, he was put on home detention, and I think it was on or about May the 30th, I believe. May 3rd, I'm sorry. I knew it was a 3 in there. May 3rd. He was on unrelated charges. He was confined to home detention and given an ankle device to monitor him. He was ordered to stay home. When he got to wherever he was staying, he cut the ankle bracelet off, and he was immediately the Anne Arundel County detention. Yeah, I'm sorry. The Anne Arundel County Department of Detention Facilities issued a monitoring bracelet. They immediately sought a warrant and was given a warrant for absconding from his home detention, and he had been on the loose. We had been looking for him related to that. Part of the problem, it was difficult because of the pandemic. You know, he was all over the place. He wore a mask, so it was kind of difficult to identify. But the minute we knew that he was wanted, my uniformed officers, as well as my intelligence detectives, and all sworn members, really, to include me, was alerted that he had absconded, and we were looking for him. And we just happened to find him on June 30th.
He had been a fugitive since May 3rd.
Since May 3rd, yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And what is in that area of Forest Drive? Was it a gas station? Was he in a car?
Well, it's a gas station on the corner. I think he was, I believe he was chased onto that parking lot, and he was apprehended right at the intersection of Forest Drive and Tyler Avenue.
Chief, may I ask a question? Anyone who's been in Annapolis for the last 2 or so weeks knows that there is concern about how did the bullet get there? How did it ricochet? How could this, you've heard people say, oh, I better watch. Can you give the community some idea of how, wherever the shooting happened, how it ended up on that patio? Or were you changed when you believe that the initial shooting took place?
Well, it happened on a parking lot on Pleasant Street, right near Clay Street, behind the hotel. It was an errant shot. Like I said, Ms. Cummings definitely wasn't the intended target. He fired the shots at a couple in the vehicle, which he's been charged with that as well. And it was just an errant shot. The trajectory kind of went over a concrete barrier and struck the victim as she was sitting on the patio. Annapolis is a very small city. It's very condensed, and the neighborhoods are not separated, very far apart. So that's the only explanation that I can give. He fired the shot that wasn't intended for Ms. Cummings, but because she was at that hotel enjoying what she should have been able to do, enjoy a nice night to celebrate her son's induction to the United States Naval Academy, the bullet that struck her.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, since it was a stray bullet, can you walk me through how she was charged with first and second degree murder?
Well, I'm not the state's attorney, so I want to kind of stay away from that. But I'll say this, that it doesn't matter. I mean, your intent can be transferred. If you have evil intent, that doesn't lessen your evil intent. If you're violating the law and you're trying to kill somebody, regardless of who the bullet strikes, the intent is there to kill. And so that's part of the reason why you justify the charges. But again, I'm not the state's attorney.
Chief, court records show that he's charged with resisting arrest and assaulting a law enforcement officer. Is that from a previous incident, or is that when officers tried to bring him in on that?
That's when officers tried to bring him in on June 30th.
Can you describe the arrest, and was there a resisting this?
It was resisting arrest, and we charged him in that case with assaulting our officers. He wasn't armed, but he did fight and try to free himself from our custody.
But I don't think the officers wouldn't have known that he wasn't armed when they chased him. They did their job.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Was this a pursuit that involved vehicles? Was this a pursuit on foot? And then just a few more follow-up questions.
It was a foot pursuit, basically. I mean, it always involves vehicles just from a patrol mode, but we didn't chase him with a vehicle. He was apprehended on foot.
And can you describe what he was seen on video doing when you say that surveillance images and photos?
That lends to the case, ma'am. I'm sorry. I don't think that I should discuss that now because it's still an ongoing investigation.
Can you also ask, are you still looking for any other suspects in this case?
I don't want to get into that right now. I'll just say, under the same umbrella, it's still an ongoing investigation.
If I may follow up, at the beginning, you did use the phrase, "we've closed the case." So I was going to ask if you anticipate any more.
We've closed that part of the case. We made an arrest, but that doesn't mean that the investigation in and of itself is closed, for clarity. We believe that we have the right person. I know we have the right person. We've arrested the person that's responsible for shooting death of Ms. Cummings, but the investigation continues.
Thank you.
Chief, there was a huge reward in this. Is any reward money going to be offered to anyone who's helped out?
Yes, that's going to be evaluated. The investigation is still ongoing. We still want the public to call in with any information that may strengthen this case, and then we'll evaluate that. And if it's any information that we receive that aided into this, then the reward money will be appropriately dispersed.
Was there any public information that was able to
Dispersed,
help
I'm
thus
sorry. I'm sorry.
far? Was there any public information that was able to help thus far?
I don't want to get into that right now. We did receive information, I'll say that.
Last question. By that you mean the tips?
We received tips, but I don't want to say whether it's public, private. We did receive tips at this time.
Thank you. Can you also clarify at the last press conference that you had said there was a possibility that she may have been struck by 2 bullets?
Well, that was, and then what I said at the last country, we believed that at that time, the autopsy results have come in, I believe it was a single shot that struck her body that caused the death, hit vital organs. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.